Caught my wife cheating on me, and I know exactly when it started. She slept with our coach but then wanted to get everything back, but I thought for a long time and decided. I'm a 44-year-old man, and my soon-to-be ex-wife, who's 39, and I had been married for 11 years without children. We were quite overweight until a health scare 2 years ago involving my blood test results showing a high risk of diabetes, gout, and hypertension really shook me up. Following that, we gradually adopted a healthier lifestyle. I managed to slim down from 117 to 85 kilograms, and my wife, let's call her Alice, went from 83 to 65 kilograms. We never felt better, and thankfully those diseases never developed. We started going to a gym regularly in the afternoons, where a coach who well nicknamed Muscle Man worked. Once Alice began to slim down, it was hard not to notice the extra attention she received from the other gym-goers. I was quite proud of her. She's quite busty and has impressive legs, so naturally Muscle Man noticed her too. I've caught him checking out other women's backsides more than once, and he seemed to relish showing off his toned physique. During one session on the elliptical machines opposite the cable machine, Muscle Man decided to strip off his shirt and start his workout, flaunting his muscles. I gave Alice a look as if to say, "Can you believe this guy?" Only to find her transfixed and subtly licking her lips. I saw Muscle Man smirking at her, and it stung a little. I was getting fitter but wasn't nearly as muscular as him. On our drive home, I mentioned Muscle Man's antics, to which Alice innocently claimed she hadn't noticed, brushing off my concerns. A few weeks later, Alice was at the Smith machine doing squats when Muscle Man decided to assist her, hands conveniently on her waist. Irritated, I stepped in and tersely told him I could take over from there. He simply smiled, called me buddy in his usual way, and stepped back. Alice, knowing me too well, was taken aback by my tone, and we ended up having a heated discussion about it at home. She labeled me immature and jealous. Despite her assurances of loyalty, we couldn't shake the tension and eventually agreed to switch gyms. However, Alice seemed to harbor resentment over my lack of trust in the following months. As time passed, an excellent job opportunity came up for me in the afternoons, leading us to attend the gym at different times. Alice's resentment seemed to grow, and our communication dwindled to sparse messages and brief responses. Concerned, I suggested couples therapy, which she dismissed, pointing the finger at my trust issues. Desperate to salvage our relationship, I agreed to see a therapist. Fast forward to 2022, Alice's behavior remained distant and intimacy was off the table. I found nothing incriminating after snooping through her phone and car. One day, our condo's security guard, a friendly guy we'll call Mr. V, mentioned seeing a masseur visit Alice, a masseur who turned out to be Muscle Man. Stunned, I took a colleague's car and tailed Alice to a mall parking lot where she met up with Muscle Man. They seemed very much like a couple, which crushed me. I tried to follow them discreetly but was stopped by a security guard before I could gather any evidence. That night I confided in my dad, who advised gathering evidence for the inevitable divorce. Alice, unaware of my discovery, came home claiming tiredness from the gym. I masked my devastation by pretending to be sick, avoiding close contact, and opted to sleep in the spare room. That night I overheard her giggling, presumably messaging Muscle Man, though I found no direct evidence. It then dawned on me that she might be using a disguise for his contact, perhaps under a female co-worker's name. The next morning, as Alice showered, I quietly borrowed her phone, linked it to my laptop to keep tabs on her messages, and returned it exactly where she left it. We both knew each other's passwords, so it was easy to stay unnoticed. Once connected, I discovered a contact under a female name, symbolized by a dumbbell as the profile picture. Diving into the messages, I found that most had been deleted, but the few that remained were cryptically discussing work matters, likely as a code to throw me off. Phrases like, "Can you deliver the papers to my desk?" stood out, especially since Alice doesn't even have a desk at work. Then there was, "Boss is in his office. He's clueless," which I deduced meant me, given her actual boss is female. After Alice emerged from her shower, she suggested I stay with my parents given my rough state, but I declined, intent on gathering more evidence. Later, after Alice left for work, I briefed my dad, got a lawyer's contact from him, and explained the situation. However, my lawyer informed me that the screenshots I took were legally inconclusive since they were under a disguised name and contained seemingly innocent content. He suggested capturing them in person for more substantial proof, but cautioned against trespassing. Distraught and unfocused at work, I toyed with the idea of installing hidden cameras at home, but dismissed it as Alice rarely brought Muscle Man there, and there was a risk she'd discover them. Instead, I texted Alice, lying that I tested positive for the bug and would stay at my parents' for better care. She seemed almost relieved and promised to call daily. I returned home to find that Alice had eagerly packed a suitcase for me. I checked her messages one last time and saw she had immediately planned a rendezvous with Muscle Man following my departure. With no formal goodbye, I left, hinting at my sadness, which oddly led her to walk me to my car, likely because Muscle Man was already inside the building. Realizing this, I hurried back and silently entered our condo. From the bedroom, I heard music and moans. Clothes strewn across a nearby sofa confirmed my worst fears. I recorded the scene as I burst into the bedroom, catching Alice and Muscle Man in a compromising position. The confrontation was intense. Muscle Man approached me aggressively, but I managed to incapacitate him with a move I remembered from a movie and forcefully ejected him from our home. Alice was left trembling on the bed. I recorded our conversation as I confronted her about the affair. She was unable to look at me or respond to my questions about her feelings and our marriage. Calmly, I told her that my lawyer would be in touch and advised her to get one too. She pleaded for reconciliation, but it was clear to me that our marriage had ended the moment she chose Muscle Man over me. I instructed her to stay with her sister and be honest about the situation. Watching Alice pack and leave was excruciating. The reality of losing the person I had loved deeply was overwhelming, and I broke down after she left. A week passed in a blur of sleepless nights and relentless thoughts. I learned from my dad that Muscleman considered pressing charges but backed down when faced with trespassing allegations. Meanwhile, Alice bombarded me with messages seeking forgiveness, but I blocked her. My sister-in-law reached out, unaware of the full extent of the situation, and thankfully my father-in-law was spared the disappointment by his absence. This whirlwind of betrayal and heartbreak concluded with Alice being officially served divorce papers the following week. Update 2. Hello everyone, I'm back with a juicy update that I think you'll find as satisfying as I do. Before diving into the latest developments, I want to express my heartfelt thanks to everyone who reached out with advice, congratulations, or just a kind word. The overwhelming support from complete strangers has truly touched me, and I'm incredibly grateful. I should clarify a few things for context. English isn't my first language, so please excuse any odd phrasing or grammatical slip-ups. Also, I previously mentioned Alice doing sit-ups, but it was actually squats. For those doubting the authenticity of my story, you're entitled to your views. I simply hope sharing these experiences might help someone else as much as I've been helped. Regarding the confrontation with AP, it wasn't some elaborate martial arts move, just a lucky throat chop before Muscle Man could react. Honestly, seeing him doubled over coughing was a small, guilty pleasure. I saw some speculation about my previous posts in other forums, which were initially confusing due to community rules and are irrelevant now. Important background: Alice and I tried to have children for 10 years, using a top fertility clinic without success. Her affair began during our third and final attempt. Interestingly, I got my health scare at this clinic, which probably saved me in more ways than one. Despite rumors, it's nearly impossible for Alice to conceive naturally, so there's no chance the last embryo was anyone's but mine. Now, on to what's been happening since D-Day. Day 1. Mr. V admitted he feigned his shoulder injury just to warn me about Muscle Man, a move I appreciate more than he knows. My brother helped me change the locks at my apartment, leaving me feeling a profound sense of isolation afterwards. I requested a day off from work, and later, my lawyer confirmed the divorce proceedings could now move forward with the evidence I provided. It will be a mutual consent divorce, which is simpler and less messy. Day 2. I showed the incriminating video to my sister-in-law, who was understandably shocked. The rest of the day was tough, filled with bouts of crying. Day 3. A visit to my parents brought shared tears and practical conversations about finances with my dad. Alice tried to enter the apartment but found her key no longer worked. Mr. V diplomatically handed her my lawyer's card on my behalf. Day 4. Despite my initial reluctance, I followed the sage advice of hitting the gym, which surprisingly lifted my spirits. I also began removing all photos of Alice from my apartment. Day 5. My lawyer and I reviewed my assets. Thankfully, a prenup protects my pre-marriage property, and I'm opting out of seeking alimony despite being entitled due to her adultery. My focus is on moving forward without lingering ties. Day 6 and 8. I've kept a low profile online, avoiding any direct contact with Alice and finding solace in sharing my story and connecting with others on Reddit. Day 9. To avoid any potential confrontation with Alice, I spent most of the day out. She also visited my family, who kept me updated. Day 10. A day trip with my parents helped distract me, and I've decided, based on my father's advice, to rent out my apartment rather than sell it. This decision is part of my broader plan to start fresh, as staying in my current home feels too painful. It's been an emotional roller coaster, but sharing this update and knowing you're all out there has been incredibly grounding. Thank you for being part of my journey through this tumultuous time. Day 11. Yesterday morning I ventured back to my old gym, uncertain if I'd encounter Muscle Man. He usually worked afternoons, but with his recent personal engagements, I suspected he might have changed shifts. He wasn't there, but I did get a chance to speak with George, the gym owner. After a brief catch-up with an old janitor who asked after Alice, I was left explaining our split to yet another familiar face. George listened intently as I explained my visit's purpose and eventually showed him the video of Muscle Man's indiscretion. He was taken aback and summoned another coach, Fuzzy, who is known for his ample beard and being Muscle Man's friend, to join our discussion. What Fuzzy shared next was astonishing. Muscle Man was apparently smitten with Alice and was even trying to trap her into a marriage by having a baby with her. I couldn't help but burst into laughter, a mixture of disbelief and a sense of karmic justice. We talked about the repercussions for Muscle Man's professional life. George mentioned that he'd have to report the issue to their coaching association and likely dismiss Muscle Man to avoid legal fallout for the gym, as Alice was a member. I would need to provide a formal statement and the video as evidence, which my lawyer would handle discreetly. Fuzzy later caught up with me as I was leaving, expressing sympathy and curious about the full story. However, our conversation was cut short when it seemed like he was stalling for time, likely for Muscle Man, who indeed showed up shortly after. Muscle Man tried to initiate a conversation, extending his hand, but I wasn't having it. He attempted an apology, claiming he never intended to hurt me and that he cared for Alice. I dismissed his apologies, seeing right through his self-interest. His demeanor shifted between apologetic and defensive as he pressed for Alice's whereabouts, which I refused to disclose. The conversation heated up, and George had to step in, sensing the tension. Day 12. Reflecting on yesterday's confrontation, I feel a grim satisfaction and readiness to finally face Alice if necessary. I'm still processing everything, but sharing here has been incredibly cathartic. How about you? How are you all handling your own challenges? Update 3. Hi everyone. A lot has happened since my last post, and I've received a letter from Alice that I need to process, so I thought I'd share here. Alice's letter was a revelation and a confession, written in a moment of clear desperation and remorse. She recounted the moment I caught her, describing her shock and inability to face herself in the mirror afterward. Her retelling brought back all those painful memories with vivid clarity. She wrote about her subsequent actions, blocking Muscle Man and her turmoil at her sister-in-law's house, grappling with the fallout of her decisions. Alice's conversation with her manipulative coworker, Charm, was also detailed in the letter, shedding light on the toxic encouragement she received to continue her infidelity. But following our confrontation and her growing realization of the consequences, her perspective seemed to shift. She argued with Charm, finally seeing the hollow emptiness of the path she was on. It seems the altercation with Charm was a turning point, leading to her eventual emotional breakdown and departure from her job due to the negative social repercussions of her actions. Alice's attempts to reach out to my family and me were met with cold shoulders, understandably so. My brother and father made their positions clear, supporting me unequivocally. Alice's realization of the extensive damage her actions caused not just to our marriage but to her personal and professional life was evident in her words. In her letter, Alice swears if given another chance, she would be the most grateful, loyal, and honest spouse. She offers complete transparency in her future actions, including unrestricted access to her social media, a gesture that, while significant, doesn't erase the past months of deceit. My feelings are mixed. The details Alice chose to include, and notably those she omitted, paint a picture of someone who is still managing her narrative. The trust we once shared has been shattered, not just by the affair, but by the ongoing deception and manipulation. Rebuilding from such a breach seems almost insurmountable. As for meeting Alice to hear her apology, I'm considering it, not to rekindle anything but perhaps to find some closure for myself. Seeing her might provide the finality I need to move on fully. What do I think of Alice's letter overall? It's a mix of truths, half-truths, and crafted omissions. While I appreciate her forthcomingness now, the depth of her betrayal and the ease with which she deceived me for months casts a long shadow over her promises. Trust, once broken in such a fundamental way, is incredibly hard to rebuild. I don't foresee a reconciliation in our future, not because I want to punish her, but because I need to protect my own peace and well-being. Thank you all for your support through this tumultuous journey. It's been a refuge and a place of strength for me. I'll update after I've met with Alice, hopefully bringing some closure to this chapter of my life. TLDR. Alice's letter tried to explain and apologize for her actions, but the damage done may be too deep for reconciliation. I am considering meeting her for closure, not for reconciliation. Update 4. Hello, champions, it's been a while. I appreciate all the messages and support you've sent my way during this challenging time. I needed a moment to myself to gather my thoughts, and now I'm ready to share what's been happening. Recently, I experienced an unexpected and rather intense anxiety attack that led to my first ever ambulance ride and hospital stay. It was terrifying. I genuinely thought it was the end for me. The diagnosis was a severe panic attack, a culmination of the extreme stress and sudden changes in my life. In a bewildering turn of events, when I woke up in the hospital, Alice was there by my side. In my confusion and influenced by medication, I initially responded warmly before reality set back in. She was still listed as my emergency contact, a detail I had overlooked. Her presence brought back a flood of memories and emotions. She acted with what seemed like genuine concern, but the situation was too complex for simple gestures to mend. Alice had been reading by my bedside and immediately comforted me upon waking. Despite my mixed feelings, she informed me that my parents had also visited, which added another layer of emotional complexity to the situation. The hospital staff had apparently relied on her quite a bit during my unconscious state. She even performed personal care tasks like sponge bathing and shaving me, which the nurse pointed out when she encouraged Alice to help feed me. This act of intimacy from someone I was so estranged from left me feeling vulnerable and conflicted. As we talked, Alice expressed a desire to continue helping and even tried to show affection, which I was not ready to fully accept. Her presence and actions reminded me of the depth of our connection and the pain of its loss. It was a stark reminder of how intertwined our lives had been. Alice's behavior during this ordeal was maternal and caring, but it also felt like a reminder of all that had gone wrong between us. She tried to engage in more personal interaction, which I resisted. It was clear that she was hoping for reconciliation, or at least a chance to explain herself further. However, I needed space to process everything without her immediate influence. I informed Alice that any further discussion would have to wait until I was out of the hospital and back in the condo, setting a clear boundary. I was not ready to dive back into our issues while still recovering from a panic attack and under the influence of hospital medication. When it was time for Alice to leave, she did so reluctantly, expressing her love and stating she would wait for my call, a call I was not sure I was ready to make. Her final words and the kiss on my hair were tender, but also a painful reminder of the intimacy we had shared and how much had been lost. Now, out of the hospital and back in the comfort of my own space, I'm reflecting on what happened and what my next steps should be. The love I have for my godchildren, Alice's niece and nephew, complicates my feelings further. They are innocent in all this, and I don't want them to suffer because of our issues. I'm planning to meet with Alice in the condo to talk, not necessarily to reconcile, but to clarify where we stand, especially regarding our shared commitments like our godchildren. It's a conversation I'm dreading, but also one that is necessary for both of our sakes, and for the sake of those we both care about deeply. Thank you once again for all your support and understanding. It means more than words can express during this tumultuous time in my life. I'll keep you posted on how things develop. Update 5. Hey champions, thanks again for all your encouragement. I've been quiet for a while, reflecting on everything and settling into my new life. I've moved into my new place, which has brought a mix of emotions and some peace. After the hospital incident, my parents filled me in on the details. It seems that after I passed out, my coworker arrived to provide info about my medical insurance, and that's when the hospital staff contacted Alice, who was still listed as my emergency contact. She arrived shortly after, and when my parents got there, they were informed by the doctor that my health scare was psychological, not physical. Alice stepped in to help with my care, and she even drove my parents home, managing to maintain a semblance of normalcy in their eyes. I spoke with my sister-in-law, who had alerted my parents, and I got to talk to my godchildren who were making get-well cards for me. Their innocence and love were comforting in a way that's hard to express. Upon being discharged, I moved into my new apartment, a place I now call my own. It's small, but it's mine, and setting it up has been a surprisingly fulfilling experience. I've taken to learning how to cook and handle things on my own, which feels like a crucial step in regaining my independence. I decided not to attend my neighbor's dinner invitation. It's too soon for me to think about dating. I need more time to heal and possibly more therapy. Reflecting on my next steps, I realized that meeting with Alice is necessary for closure. I need to understand her actions and make it clear that reconciliation isn't an option. However, I want to keep things amicable for the sake of family ties. I cherish my relationship with my in-laws and the twins, and I don't want to lose them over this. To give myself a break from all the recent stress, I took a short trip to the beach, which was immensely therapeutic. It helped me to step back and breathe, away from the reminders of all that had happened. During my time alone, I came to a sad realization. I still loved the woman I married, the fun-loving, supportive partner who was by my side for over a decade. But the person she became, the one who betrayed our marriage, feels like a stranger. I'm mourning the loss of the wife I knew, acknowledging that she has changed in ways that I can no longer reconcile with. My plan now is to approach the upcoming meeting with Alice with a clear head and a firm resolve. It's about finding peace and hopefully moving forward without bitterness, keeping those I love close and starting anew on my own terms. Thank you all for sticking with me through this journey. Your support has been a beacon during these dark times. I'll update you after my meeting with Alice. Until then, take care. Update 6. Hello again, champions. This will likely be one of my final updates. After much introspection and a painful yet necessary confrontation, I met with Alice. Here's how it went down. Last weekend, Alice and I finally faced each other after everything that's unfolded. True to form, she arrived looking composed and perhaps hopeful, in attire that I always found appealing. It's hard not to acknowledge the pang in my heart at seeing her like that. She attempted to greet me with open arms, but I kept the interaction formal, maintaining physical and emotional distance as we sat down to talk. After the initial awkward chit-chat, Alice confessed to having read my Reddit posts, so she was fully aware of all I had been through and shared online. She began to cry, claiming the person who hurt me, the Alice lost in the affair fog, was gone. But when I pressed her for the unvarnished truth, beyond the excuses and self-justifications, the conversation took a darker turn. Alice admitted that she was drawn to Musselman's attention and flattery from the very start. Even before the incident, I caught on the gym's elliptical machines. She revealed that her infidelity was driven not by manipulation from her coworker Charm, but by her own desire and excitement from the attention she was receiving, which was something that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in our marriage. She insisted that the affair was purely physical and not emotional, claiming she never loved Musselman and that I was the only true love of her life. However, when I confronted her about the tangible affection I witnessed between them at the mall, she struggled to maintain her narrative. Alice eventually confessed that while she enjoyed the attention and attraction, it didn't equate to love or a desire to be with him over me. The conversation became increasingly difficult as I pushed for complete honesty. The acknowledgement that she found Musselman physically more appealing than me was a gut punch, despite somewhat expecting it. It underscored the superficial basis of her betrayal and highlighted the deep insecurities within our relationship, about appearance, desirability, and what we meant to each other. The emotional weight of her admissions was heavy. She expressed deep regret, but the damage was done. How could I trust her again after 9 months of deceit? How could I believe this wouldn't happen again the next time someone caught her eye? In the end, the meeting served its painful purpose. It brought closure and a stark clarity. The Alice I loved, the one who had been my partner and best friend, had changed in ways that couldn't be undone. What we had was irretrievably broken. Moving forward, my focus is on healing and rebuilding my life. The beach trip was a good start, and now, settling into my new apartment, I am beginning to feel a sense of hope and new possibilities. I will continue to see my therapist and work on understanding and managing my emotions better. As for Alice, our paths will diverge here. I need to build a future where my happiness and well-being are not contingent on someone else's presence or approval. This isn't just about moving on from a person, but also from a past version of myself that I can't return to. Thank you all for your immense support and for sharing this journey with me. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable, and while I hope this chapter of my life is closing, I look forward to new beginnings with a stronger, clearer sense of self. TLDR. I met with Alice, and she came clean about everything. It was heart-wrenching but necessary for closure. Now I'm focused on moving forward and healing. Update 7. Hello, champions. It's been an emotionally charged period since I last updated. The final conversation with Alice was the hardest yet, and I believe it has finally brought me the closure I needed, albeit in a painfully clarifying way. Alice and I met, and the interaction was as intense and heartbreaking as you might imagine. She was tearful, remorseful, and seemingly desperate to mend things between us. She confessed fully, admitting to the decisions that led to her betrayal. What was once theoretical or distant in my mind became vivid and undeniable through her admissions. As she spoke of the events, particularly the details about her encounters with Featherhead, I felt as if I were experiencing everything in real time. The graphic description of her actions and choices was more than just an admission. It felt like a live reliving of my worst fears and pain. Hearing her acknowledge these things openly was both a relief and a devastating blow to any remnants of trust or hope I might have unconsciously held on to. She tried to explain her mindset, the thrill of the attention, and even detailed how Featherhead's demands escalated over time. But no explanation could soften the blow. Every word she said only solidified my resolve that this chapter in our lives was truly over. Despite her pleas for forgiveness and her promises to change, even going as far as to suggest gaining weight to prove her commitment. It all felt like misguided attempts to fix something irreparably broken. The mention of her realizing her narcissistic traits and attention-seeking behavior in therapy was insightful, yet it also underscored how deep our issues ran. When Alice left, after a long, tear-filled final goodbye where she promised to cut all ties with Featherhead and swore never to betray me again, I felt a sense of profound emptiness but also relief. There was no joy in seeing her so broken, no satisfaction in having my suspicions confirmed. There was just a deep, pervasive sadness mixed with a freeing realization that it was truly over. I spent the rest of the day alone, reflecting on everything that had transpired. It was the first time in a long time I skipped a meal, not out of stress, but because I was so absorbed in thought, processing the end of an important chapter of my life. This ordeal has taught me a lot about myself, about trust, and about the complexities of love and commitment. I'm left with a clearer understanding of what I want in my future relationships and a firmer grasp on my personal boundaries and values. As painful as this process has been, I now feel ready to move forward, to rebuild and to eventually find happiness again on my terms, with someone who respects and values me as much as I do them. Thank you all for being here, for sharing your advice and support through this difficult time. Your words have been a comfort and a guide, and I'm deeply grateful. Moving forward, I'm focusing on healing, on enjoying time with my godchildren, and on embracing whatever comes next with an open though cautious heart. TLDR. Alice and I had our final conversation where she came clean about everything. It was devastating but necessary for closure. Now I'm ready to move on and rebuild. Update 8. Hello champions, thanks again for all your continued support and messages during this trying time. It's been a whirlwind of emotions and developments, but finally, as of February 17th, my divorce has been finalized. I am officially single, and while that brings some relief, it's also ushered in a period of deep reflection and, unfortunately, depression. Here's a recap of the recent events leading up to the finalization of the divorce. Cooking and self-improvement. Over the past months, I've been spending more time at my parents' house learning to cook. It's been a therapeutic activity, and I even baked bread for the first time. It was a bit ugly but delicious. I'm planning to perfect my baking skills in time for my godchildren's birthdays in March. On another note, I've realized that certain topics like infidelity as portrayed in shows like The Office have become intolerable for me. It's a strange feeling to see something that used to make me laugh now leave me cold. Legal developments and Featherhead's situation. I had a conversation with George, the gym owner, who updated me on the situation with Featherhead. George had fired him and taken legal action due to Featherhead's illegal activities at his father's house. George also showed me a CCTV video of Featherhead looking defeated and emotional, which, in a dark way, provided a sense of schadenfreude. Depression and therapy. My psychiatrist diagnosed me with depression, likely triggered by the cumulative stress and my underlying insecurities. I've started on a mild antidepressant and have also taken up kickboxing, which has been great for my physical health and mental sharpness. Renovations and moving forward. I've decided to renovate the condo to make it more suitable for renting to students, given its proximity to several universities. This project has been a good focus for me, helping me channel my energies into something productive. Mandatory Marriage Counseling MC. The most challenging part of this process was attending mandatory marriage counseling sessions with Alice as part of the divorce proceedings. Despite my reluctance, it was necessary to show the judge that I was willing to engage in the process, even though reconciliation was off the table. Alice's demeanor during these sessions was quiet, almost subdued, and she frequently tried to catch my gaze, perhaps in hopes of rekindling something. However, my mind was made up. In these sessions, Alice reiterated her remorse and her desire to make amends, even suggesting drastic measures like gaining weight again as a sign of commitment. However, for me, the damage was too profound to consider reconciliation. The sessions did serve to clarify and officially acknowledge the end of our marriage, allowing us both to articulate our feelings and close that chapter officially. reflection and recovery. Now that the divorce is complete, I find myself grappling with a mix of freedom and loss. The reality of my new life is settling in, and with it a deep sadness for what could have been. Depression has been a tough opponent, but I'm learning to navigate it with the help of therapy and the support of my family and friends. I am looking forward to focusing on my personal growth, my hobbies, and especially the upcoming birthday celebrations for my godchildren. While this chapter of my life has been one of the hardest, it has also taught me a lot about resilience, the complexity of human relationships, and the importance of self-care. Thank you all for being a part of my journey. Your words and thoughts have been a beacon during these dark times, and I am immensely grateful for every message and piece of advice. As I move forward, I hope to find peace and a new sense of happiness in this next chapter of my life. TLDR. My divorce is finalized, and while it's a relief, it has also led to a bout of depression. I've been focusing on self-improvement and coping with the changes, and I'm slowly learning to navigate my new life as a single man. Update 9. Hello again, champions. The journey through marriage counseling has been tough and eye-opening. Our first session revealed deep-seated issues and emotions, pushing both Alice and me to confront painful truths about our relationship and ourselves. During the session, as Beatrice mediated, Alice and I had the chance to voice our expectations and concerns. I maintained that while I wished for an amicable end, reconciliation was not possible due to the broken trust and the deep wounds from her affair. Alice, on the other hand, expressed a strong desire to salvage our marriage, claiming she had never stopped loving me. The discussion inevitably turned to the details of her affair with Featherhead. Alice insisted that her feelings for him were never about love, but were driven by the thrill and the attention she received. When pressured about still being in contact with him, Alice hesitated with her phone, which only fueled my suspicions further. However, she eventually handed it over, pleading with me to remember that she was not in a right state of mind when she was involved with him, an explanation she attributed to being in an affair fog. Beatrice explained that this so-called affair fog can cloud judgment, making the person involved act out of character without fully grasping the consequences of their actions. While this might explain some of Alice's behavior, it didn't alleviate the betrayal I felt. When asked what it would take for me to consider reconciliation, I was clear about the obstacles: the lack of trust and the inability to be intimate with Alice after her physical betrayal. Alice tearfully insisted that her physical involvement with Featherhead was meaningless, an attempt to reassure me, but it only highlighted the extent of her deceit and the emotional chasm between us. Alice also shared more about her past, revealing the loneliness and bullying she endured due to her appearance. Her transformation and the subsequent attention it garnered seemed to have a profound impact on her self-esteem and actions. This struck a chord with me as I shared similar experiences of being marginalized based on looks and ethnicity. My own past, marked by rejection and derogatory nicknames, had shaped my self-image, which I confessed to Alice and Beatrice. The session was emotionally charged, with both of us shedding tears. It was clear that while Alice was desperate for forgiveness and a second chance, I was far from ready to let go of the hurt and move forward with her. The damage was too deep, the memories too painful. As I reflect on this session, I realize that while understanding Alice's motivations and background helps contextualize her actions, it doesn't heal the wounds she inflicted. Moving forward, I must focus on healing myself, regardless of whether our paths will ever realign. The counseling is necessary for closure and legal reasons, but it also serves as a painful reminder of what was lost. The next steps are uncertain. I continue to grapple with my feelings and the fallout of our fractured relationship. I appreciate all of your support and advice during this difficult time. It has been invaluable in helping me navigate this turbulent chapter of my life. Thank you, champions, for standing with me. I'll update you after our next counseling session, hoping to find more clarity and perhaps a way to finally start healing. TLDR. Attended the first marriage counseling session with Alice, where deep-seated issues were discussed and painful truths confronted. While Alice seeks reconciliation, I remain firm in my decision due to broken trust and emotional wounds. The path to healing continues to be challenging and fraught with emotional upheaval. Update 10. Hello, champions. Thank you for staying with me on this journey. The recent marriage counseling session was enlightening and draining, revealing deeper layers of our troubled relationship and opening my eyes to various aspects of Alice's behavior and our situation. During the session, Beatrice prompted a conversation about Alice's openness regarding her affair, contrasting her behavior with typical unfaithful partners who often hide their actions. Alice admitted to openly confessing to our friends and family, accepting their harsh judgments as a form of self-punishment and a step towards making amends with me. This action, as Beatrice noted, is not common among those who cheat, and it did make me reconsider the sincerity of Alice's remorse. Alice explained that her decision to come clean was partly driven by Featherhead's increasing aggression and threats to expose their affair, which frightened her and pushed her towards disclosure. She expressed that my discovery of the affair, though devastating, was a necessary wake-up call for her to realize the depth of her mistakes. When Beatrice questioned the motives behind Alice's insistence on counseling and trying to save our marriage, it forced me to confront the possibility that Alice's efforts might be genuine. She's not financially dependent on me, nor is she socially isolated, thanks to her sister's support. Alice's emotional plea in the session, kneeling and looking me in the eyes, professing she'd never hurt me again, was powerful yet left me skeptical. Could I ever trust her again after everything? After the session, back at home, I decided to probe further into Alice's recent communications to see if she had maintained contact with Featherhead. To my surprise, after unblocking him on her phone, a slew of messages poured in, none from Alice but all from him, showing his persistent attempts to reach her. Using a recovery app, I retrieved many of their past messages. While there was clear evidence of his derogatory remarks about me and his expressions of affection towards Alice, there was nothing reciprocal from her side in the messages I could recover. This discovery provided a strange mix of relief and renewed pain. It was comforting to see Alice hadn't reciprocated Featherhead's declarations of love, yet the disrespect he showed towards me through his messages was a fresh stab. It was also revealing to see that on the day before D-Day, there was no communication between Alice and Featherhead, supporting her claim that she hadn't planned to meet with him that day. Reflecting on these findings and the emotional roller coaster of the counseling session, I am left to ponder the complexities of forgiveness and trust. Can I move past the betrayal for a renewed attempt at our marriage, or is the damage too profound? Alice's earnest plea in the session, coupled with her actions since being caught, suggest a genuine desire for redemption, but the shadows of past deceptions loom large. As I continue to navigate this difficult path, I appreciate the insights and support from all of you. Your perspectives have been invaluable as I confront these challenging decisions. The next counseling session is approaching, and I am bracing myself for what may come, armed with a deeper understanding, but still guarded. Thank you again for your support and for sharing this journey with me. I will keep you updated as we proceed with the counseling and as I continue to sort through the tangled emotions and decisions that lie ahead. TLDR. Attended a revealing marriage counseling session with Alice, who showed remorse and a desire to reconcile. Discovered no recent communication between her and Featherhead, giving me mixed feelings about trust and forgiveness. Continuing to explore the possibility of reconciliation while grappling with deep-seated pain and betrayal. Update 11. Hey champions, it's been a rough patch since my last update, and I've been grappling with waves of emotions that have brought me face to face with some of my deepest insecurities and fears. Your support continues to be a pillar for me during this tumultuous time. Marriage Counseling Reflections. The latest marriage counseling session with Alice revolved around our beginnings and what drew us together. Recalling those memories was bittersweet. It reminded me of the genuine connection and affection we once shared. Beatrice, our counselor, navigated us through these recollections, helping us understand the contrast between our past and the present. Despite the positive moments in the session, the reality of our current situation couldn't be ignored. I returned Alice's phone to her after checking it thoroughly. She respected my request for no contact NC, leaving quietly with a smile which was both poignant and respectful. A painful party experience. Over the weekend, I attended a Halloween party hosted by my cousin Megan, who tried to set me up with a friend of hers named Duchess. Unfortunately, the encounter didn't go well. Duchess seemed visibly disappointed upon meeting me, echoing the painful rejections of my youth. The interaction ended with her escaping to dance with someone else, which only deepened the sting of rejection. Megan's attempt to convince Duchess of my worth was overheard, adding an extra layer of humiliation to the night. This event triggered a profound sense of loneliness and self-doubt, leading to an intense anxiety attack later that night. Dealing with depression. The aftermath of the party and the ongoing stress from my divorce have culminated in a heavy bout of depression. I've found myself unable to muster the energy for normal activities like going to the gym or interacting socially. Even a joyful activity like trick-or-treating with my godchildren couldn't sustain my spirits for long. I've recognized that these feelings are signs of depression, a real and powerful response to the cumulative stresses of the past months. My therapist has been incredibly supportive, offering strategies to cope with these overwhelming emotions. However, the journey is tough and some days are harder than others. Looking forward. Moving forward is a challenge. Each step feels heavy, and while I am committed to healing, I know this path is not linear. The feelings of inadequacy at the party are a stark reminder of how deeply these events have affected my self-esteem. It's a battle not just with the circumstances, but with my own self-image and worth. Despite this, I'm trying to find moments of peace and clarity. Ignoring Megan's texts might not have been my finest moment, but it was necessary for my mental health. I need to surround myself with positivity and genuine support, not forced interactions that leave me feeling worse. Thank you all for standing by me, for your words of encouragement, and for sharing your own stories of resilience. It's a comfort to know I'm not alone in this fight. I'll continue to share my journey, hoping that each update brings me closer to a place of healing and peace. TLDR. Recollections during marriage counseling were bittersweet, revealing the depth of the bond Alice and I once shared. A failed attempt at socializing led to a severe anxiety attack and a deepening of my depression. Moving forward is tough, but necessary for my healing. Update 12. Hi, champions. Thank you for sticking with me through this journey. Your support and advice have been invaluable during these challenging times. Here's what happened during our third and final marriage counseling session, which occurred shortly after a particularly tough personal episode. Emotional breakdown and counseling session. Arriving at the session following the difficult experience at Megan's party, I was visibly upset, something I tried to mask but failed. Alice quickly noticed my distress and expressed concern, which led to a very raw and emotional moment between us. Despite my initial reluctance, Alice's genuine worry and Beatrice's prompting encouraged me to open up about my current struggles with insecurity and sadness unrelated directly to our marital issues. Alice's response to my vulnerability was unexpectedly tender and supportive. She comforted me, acknowledging my feelings and attempting to reassure me about my self-worth, which was a poignant moment for both of us. It reminded me of the deep connection we once shared, making the session emotionally intense but also healing in some ways. Beatrice's suggestion. Beatrice observed our interactions and suggested that while our old marriage might be beyond repair, there could be a possibility for a new kind of relationship between us, a fresh start with a different foundation. Alice was receptive to this idea, but I remained cautious, unsure if rebuilding something new was possible or even wise given our history. Reflections on separation. We discussed how life has been since separating. I mentioned my new hobbies and efforts to improve my mental health, while Alice shared that she had found a new job and continued with her therapy. We both acknowledged the loneliness and challenges of being apart. The session ended with Beatrice finalizing our participation, which marked a formal end to the counseling mandated by the court. Walking out together. After the session, as we walked to her car, Alice asked if the no-contact NC rule was still in effect. Given the progress during the session, I felt it was okay to relax the rule slightly. She then tentatively asked if we could meet for dinner on my birthday, promising it would be just as friends with no expectations. I agreed, setting clear boundaries regarding physical contact. Moving forward with caution. Agreeing to meet Alice for dinner feels like a test to see if a friendship is possible, a way to see if we can interact without the old patterns and hurts overwhelming us. It's a small step towards understanding what our new relationship could look like, even if it's just as friends. As always, I'm taking things one day at a time, continuing to focus on my well-being and consulting with my therapist about these developments. It's a confusing time, but I'm learning a lot about myself and my capacity for forgiveness and growth. Thank you again for all your support. I'll keep you updated on how things develop, especially with the upcoming dinner with Alice. It's a tentative step forward, but one I hope will bring more clarity to both of our lives. TLDR. Our final marriage counseling session led to unexpected emotional support from Alice and a suggestion from Beatrice that starting a new type of relationship might be possible. We ended the session on a note of cautious optimism, agreeing to meet for a friendly dinner on my birthday to see if we can maintain a positive connection without old patterns interfering. Update 13. Hello, champions. This is likely my final update here, and I want to start by expressing my deepest gratitude for your unwavering support and encouragement. It's truly been a transformative journey, and your insights and shared experiences have played a crucial role in guiding me through these tumultuous times. Final marriage counseling session and a turning point. The third and final marriage counseling session with Alice was unexpectedly emotional. Initially, I was struggling internally, still reeling from the painful party experience and grappling with deep-seated insecurities. Alice noticed my distress, which led to a rare moment of vulnerability between us. She showed genuine concern, which momentarily bridged the chasm that had formed between us. However, despite this brief connection, my resolve remained firm. I appreciated Alice's gestures and her attempts to comfort me, but the foundational issues, trust and betrayal, still overshadowed any fleeting moments of empathy. A new beginning through physical challenge. The real turning point for me came unexpectedly through my kickboxing training. My coach, Isaac, challenged me to push beyond my emotional and physical limits. This experience, culminating in a significant moment where I successfully landed a punch during sparring, acted as a powerful metaphor for my personal growth and resilience. It wasn't just about the physical contact. It was about proving to myself that I could overcome obstacles and assert my strength, both metaphorically and literally. Embracing change and self-improvement. Inspired by this breakthrough, I've decided to embrace change more openly and aggressively than before. I've adopted a new pet, Lucy, who brings joy and companionship, reinforcing the benefits of caring for another living being. I've also committed to improving my physical health, refining my kickboxing skills, and even exploring new hobbies and personal changes like getting a tattoo and changing my appearance and car. Looking ahead. As for Alice, after much reflection and consideration of everything that's transpired, I've decided to truly move on. The upcoming birthday dinner, once a source of anxiety, now feels like it will be a closure more than anything, a final farewell to the relationship we once had. I'm going into this dinner with clear boundaries and no expectations, ready to close this chapter of my life. Final thoughts. This journey has taught me more about myself than I ever expected. I've learned that healing isn't linear and that sometimes strength comes from the most unexpected places. The support from this community has been indispensable, and it'll carry the lessons I've learned here with me as I continue to navigate life's challenges. Thank you, champions, for everything. Your kindness and wisdom have not only helped me heal, but have also empowered me to start anew with confidence and hope. I'm looking forward to the future, to the new experiences and opportunities that await, and to living life as the best version of myself. TLDR. The final counseling session with Alice brought unexpected emotional connections, but my journey through personal challenges and kickboxing helped cement my decision to move forward independently. I am embracing new changes and opportunities with a renewed sense of self and purpose, ready to close this chapter and begin anew. Final update. Hello, champions. It's Bantar here, with what I feel will be my last update in this community. As I write this, I look back on the journey I've embarked upon since the day my world turned upside down, and I feel a profound sense of gratitude and resolution. Your support, insights, and shared stories have been instrumental in guiding me to this point of healing and self-discovery. The final marriage counseling session. Just before our scheduled birthday dinner, Alice and I attended our last marriage counseling session. It was emotional and revealing. I entered the session feeling uncertain, weighed down by recent struggles with my self-esteem and lingering feelings of betrayal. However, Alice's unexpected empathy during the session provided a small solace, reminding me of the deep connections we once shared. The birthday dinner. At her favorite restaurant, Alice and I met for what was supposed to be a simple birthday dinner. It turned into a poignant moment of reflection. We reminisced, laughed, and for a brief moment it felt like reconnecting with an old friend. Alice's revelation about her continued rejection of advances from others, including a co-worker, reaffirmed her current stance on fidelity and her remorse for past actions. However, when the conversation took a flirtatious turn, I was reminded of the boundaries I needed to maintain. Her suggestion to revisit our intimacy was firmly declined, reinforcing my decision to move forward separately. Embracing a new chapter. Post-counseling, I've taken significant steps to rebuild my life. Adopting Lucy, my dog, has brought new joy and responsibility into my daily routine. My engagement in kickboxing has not only improved my physical health, but also bolstered my mental strength and confidence, helping me to confront and overcome my inner doubts and fears. Reflection and growth. The interactions with Alice, while challenging, have helped clarify my needs and boundaries. The realization that while I can forgive, I cannot forget has been pivotal. It has allowed me to truly accept the end of our marriage and the necessity of forging a path forward without her as my partner. Looking ahead with hope. Today I stand on the brink of new beginnings. I'm exploring new relationships, though cautiously, and continuing to invest in my passions and career. The support from my family, especially during interactions with Alice and her family, has been invaluable, ensuring that despite our divorce, I do not lose my connection to those I consider family. A message to all, to everyone going through similar trials: know that the path to recovery is non-linear and fraught with challenges. However, with the right support, self-awareness, and determination, it is possible to emerge stronger and more centered. Your journey may differ from mine, but the possibility of renewal and happiness is universal. Thank you once more, champions, for everything. This community has been a beacon during my darkest times, and I hope my updates have, in some way, helped others feel less alone in their struggles. As I close this chapter, I look forward to the adventures ahead, carrying with me the lessons learned and the strength gained from this experience. Bantar, signing off, wishing everyone peace, strength, and happiness. Rock on and rock hard. Life's an adventure worth living fully. Goodbye, and thank you all.